Yeah, hi. I wanted to make a quick video on the sale process of a multifamily transaction, a step-by-step rundown of the process that each transaction should go through in the order that they should be done, and what happens during each point of the transaction, from the taking of the listing all the way to the close of escrow and then after the close of escrow. There are multiple steps that each individual sale goes through, and taking these in order is very important to having a successful and a transaction that will close escrow. All right. Obviously, the first point of the sale would be to take the listing and getting the listing signed, an agreement from the seller on the asking price, and after doing a market analysis for the seller to help them determine the overall value of the property and what can be anticipated when presenting it to the market. The second step is generating the market materials or the marketing materials, so that once the property is starting to be marketed, it's very easily to be able to send out to prospective buyers, agents, and anyone that might have interest in the property, so that they can easily see images, cash flow, income and expenses, all the inner workings of the property that would have to be included in making the decision of whether or not it's a good investment or not. The third point of the process is listing is promoted, and that is through all the different types of media, social media, uh, the marketing on the MLS, LoopNet, CoStar, anywhere where the property can be placed online, and through print materials, newsletters, all those types of things, so that the property is promoted and exposed to as many people as possible. Once the offer is received after the marketing has been completed on the property, you take a look at any offers that come in, compare each one with each other, and help the seller to make a decision on what's the best possible offer that might be have the best chance of closing escrow. Then you go through the negotiation process with a potential buyer, negotiating the best possible price for the seller, and also making sure that during that process you put together a transaction that has a high likelihood of closing escrow. And once you get an agreement on the price and the terms with the buyer and the seller, you move to the next step, which is going to be the buyer's inspection. The buyer's inspection consists of any inspections: a termite inspection, home inspection by professional inspection company, a roof inspection, any type of inspection that a buyer would potentially want to undertake in order to determine whether or not the property has any deferred maintenance, any problems that may come up during the ownership of the property. Then once that is completed, escrow is opened, and you therefore move forward with the buyer's earnest money deposit being deposited. Some agents will want to have all the escrow opened prior to the buyer's inspection. I'm not one that likes to do that, because potentially a buyer could walk from the property after they do their inspection, or negotiations could fall apart, and there's no sense in opening escrow when you don't really have a deal, because the property is subject to an interior inspection. It's not like a single family home where they've already seen the insides and they know they like what they see. The next step is to negotiate any repairs and or credits. Those could be any type of repair for the property, or a credit is preferred by the seller. Uh, Typically, that's just the easiest in the whole process, and it makes for a much smoother escrow rather than having to go through the repair process. That is a preference depending on the seller and how much they can negotiate in repair costs versus having them do it themselves. The next point is the buyer's due diligence period, and that varies and can vary and can depend on what you negotiated during the process of number 5 of the negotiation process, and how many days you allow for the buyer's due diligence period. All contingencies are removed. That includes inspection, loan, any type of contingency that the buyer could potentially have. And at that point, you pretty much have a pretty solid transaction once all the contingencies are removed. The buyer is not going to be able to really back out of the transaction without having any ramifications from doing so. The termite and miscellaneous repairs are completed next. Again, those are negotiable. If you haven't negotiated the termite repairs out from the contract, and all repairs out in the form of or in the process of the negotiation, that is the time that the repairs would be completed, and that is after the contingencies have been removed, so that the seller does not have to have an outlay of funds to do any repairs, and then if the transaction falls apart, and then he's already spent money to repair it, unless it's something that any buyer typically would require. And then once the buyer's loan funds, then you pretty much have a deal that you know is going to close. Very rarely do escrows fall apart once a buyer's loan funds. Then escrow closes after the funding, and at that point you notify the tenants of the sale, and the utilities are transferred to the buyer. So I hope this helps on how a transaction works and how you can understand what steps need to be done and the order of each step. I'm sure I could go into a lot more detail on this whole process, but this is a quick video to help explain how this whole process works from start to finish. Thanks for watching.